Hey guys, in this episode, I want to talk about the idea of differentiating between the inner world and the outer world, and why do I think it's important to do so. So, I'm gonna start with the explanation what do I mean when I say inner world and outer world. With inner world, this is the collection of components and elements that exist inside us that we cannot see with our eyes. For example, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our belief systems. Those are elements, they exist, but we cannot see them directly with our eyes. And the outer world, on the other side, is a collection of elements and components that we can directly see with our eyes. For example, the material things that we have, the actions that we do, the results that we create through the actions that we do. Those are the components of the outside world. Now, why was it important for me to differentiate these two worlds? It was because I got frustrated. So, I was broke when I was a student. I did not have a lot of money. And then I finished my study and I started to work as an engineer. I started earning money. I was lucky enough that I got promoted and became a regional manager. So at that point, I it's almost like I had a list of what I wanted to achieve, right? There's this car from the company, I got it, a bigger space to live, I had it. I had my own office with my name in front of it. I got to wear suits and have meetings with the CEOs and important people from the companies. So, those are the things that I wanted to achieve when I moved to Germany to study and become an engineer. At that point, I achieved all of those things in the list, and yet at the same time, every time I arrived at home, I felt empty and unfulfilled inside. So then I actually had two options. It's either I ignore that feeling, ignore that hunch that something is not right here, and then I can keep climbing the ladder. I can earn more money, I can get faster cars, I can get bigger space, bigger home. Or option number two was exploring that hunch, exploring that question. Something feels off. What is it actually? Because I already checked all the lists that I had, right? And then I did the inner work, which I'm not going to go into detail right now. I can do it in future episodes. So I did the inner work and I came to the conclusion that option number one wasn't actually an option because even logically, with when I think about it, how can more of the things that cannot make me happy? That just didn't make sense for me. So option A, the first option was not an option anymore. So I was left with one option, which is exploring the questions. Again, it sounds so simple and yet it was very hard at that moment because everything that I directed my whole life to arrive at that position, right? And then I was at that position, and then it did not give me the fulfillment that I was expecting. So then I realized, okay, maybe this is the smaller scale of the sentence that money doesn't buy you happiness. Maybe this is the smaller scale of the example that millionaires and billionaires out there, they have a lot of success, they have a lot of money, but they're miserable inside. I'm not a millionaire, but uh, I felt like I experienced it in a smaller scale. So then I questioned myself, so if all the material things, everything that comes from the outer world, and I still feel empty inside. So there must be something that I did not understand at that point. And mind you, at that point, I also did not differentiate between happiness and pleasure and inner peace and contentment. So everything came under the roof of happiness. And then I understood the frustration that I experience and a lot of other people experience as well. The frustration comes from wanting to solve a problem from one world with the solution from the other world. For example, if the problem is I don't feel like I'm worthy enough to be loved, I don't feel like I'm good enough. That is a problem that comes from the inner world. It is a feeling, it is a thought, and then we can see it or we can acknowledge our own self talk. How are we talking with ourselves? There is a part of belief system. I believe that I'm not good enough if I'm not performing, da 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 da. That is a problem from the inner world. And then, usually, because we don't know the skill of looking inward, the skill of introspection, because we never learned it. So we try to solve this problem with whatever solution that we can think of. And usually the solution comes from solution from the outer world because that's the most obvious. And why is it obvious? Because it is visible. And then the strategy that we use consciously or subconsciously to solve that inner problem is by becoming a high performer, by buying expensive stuffs, by reaching some status in the society. And in my experience and my personal development journey, having a lot of mentors that I'm blessed to be able to learn from, and from the clients I've worked with, the problem from the inner world will never be solved from the solution from the outer world. It just doesn't work that way. It's almost like there's a missing puzzle inside, and then we're trying to look for this puzzle piece from outside, and then we ended up pushing, trying to fit this puzzle piece that we get from outside, and we ended up hurting ourselves because the puzzle piece actually does not match, but we force it to match, so then it's just gonna hurt us. And if we are hurt, it's automatically we will hurt others as well, because we can only give what we have. And if we are hurt inside, it directly influences our actions to the outside as well. Even though the action itself can be good, but it is not sustainable because it does not come from a healthy foundation. But there's a topic for another day. So the problem from the inner world will not be solved from the solution from the outer world. And it also happens on the other way. That means if you have a problem from the outer world, for example, we don't have money to pay our rent next month. And then the solution that we are looking for, or we are doing, is solution from the inner world. We meditate 8 hours a day. I'm saying extreme now. We are journaling. We are taking a walk in the nature. We are praying. We are going to church. And instead of going to work or looking for ways to earn money, I always say, like, your landlord, he doesn't care if you feel peaceful inside or not. All he cares about is that you are able to pay the rent for next month. That's all he cares about. So, again, understanding the situation that we are facing and then trying to separate what is the outer world part of it, what is the inner world part of it, will help us to solve the problem more accurate. And one situation, there can be the inner world and the outer world version of it. Let me tell you an example. This exact project, Matter and Meaning project, Matter and Meaning podcast, I had this is a project that's very close to my heart because I really want to execute this idea for months now. And it's not like I never I have experience with creating podcasts before. I have experience talking in front of camera, using microphone and everything. I have it. And yet there was something there that stopped me to actually press record and publish this work, this episode, for example. I still struggle, like until now, it is still a proactive move. So I do this, and I was trying to look and separate what is the outer world problem and the inner world problem out of this situation. The outer world problem was super easy to solve. And I used to use these excuses a lot before when I did not have a lot of money, where I was still a student, where I was still broke, when I was still broke as a student. And the outer world problems were, yeah, I don't have the equipments. I don't have a good camera. I don't have a good microphone. I don't have a good laptop or PC to upload it, and da 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 da. So many excuses. Because our mind is just so smart that they look for excuses and they will rationalize the behavior that they will find reasoning on why we should or should not do a thing, right? So that's the outer world problems. But because I am now aware of it, that this is actually not an outer world problem. Yes, I do have to have a camera. Yes, I do have to have the microphone, but I can even record with my phone. There is the inner world part of it, which is, I'm going to be very honest, I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid of failure, that even though I have all the equipments and then I press play, and even though I think that this is going to be beneficial for me and for others that listen to it, I'm afraid to find out that no one listens to it. And I'm afraid to find out that no one gets any value from it. So if I don't do this project, I can at least hide behind the excuse that if I do it, I will be successful. But I just don't have the time or the equipments. I can always hide behind that. And that was my inner problem. My problem from the inner world. And therefore, I need to look the solution from the inner world as well, and not through the best equipments that I can buy. So what was the solution? The solution was having that crystal clear clarity on why am I doing this project in the first place. I want to document my thoughts. I want to document my journal. I want to document my journey, and I want to share it with others because I was helped by listening to other people's journeys. So it is not in my hand if someone is listening or getting any value from it, but it is in my hand to make it accessible and to make it accessible for others. That's my only job, and that's it. And throughout the process, I will get better, and I'm betting on myself, and I trust myself, and I push myself to become a better version. That's the intention, and that's it, and that has to be enough, and that is enough. Do you see how much I'm trying to convince myself still right now? But that's the case. So this is why I believe it is important to separate this, the inner and the outer world, because again, it depends on what your goal is in your life. If you want to be enlightened, well, then probably you don't need that. You don't need material achievements anymore, right? And if you want to be successful at all costs, well, then you maybe don't need any inner peace. But what do you want? If you ask me, my question is, I want to be successful in both worlds. That means I am aware of the game that I'm playing. I'm aware that this is a game that I want to win. If I play it, I want to win as well. And at the same time, I want to be aware that this is a game that I choose to play in the first place. And therefore, again, inner world, outer world, understanding the differences so we can solve our problems more accurate. All right. How is it with you? Do you resonate with this idea? Do you have any experience with similar life situations? I would love to hear your story. And I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.